Are you curious about the world of AI and language teaching? We're discussing the top 10 questions that came up during the TESOL 25 conference.
Welcome to the DIESOL podcast, where we focus on developing innovation in English as a second or other language. I'm Brent Warner, professor of ESL at Irvine Valley College, and I'm here with the wonderful Ixchell Reyes, award-winning educator in innovation and professional development, specializing in teacher training with an EdTech focus. Ixchell, how are you?
Oh my goodness, still recovering from TESOL. The good energy, actually. How are you?
Good. So, on the last episode, we had a little bit of a dark intro. We were talking to the friends, and it's like, oh, we're not sure what's going to happen. But something happened. So, what happened?
Oh, people came together and raised the funds on your initiative to get me there. And I was blown away. We were both blown away. 3 hours, and
Yeah.
I was funded. Um, And
Yeah.
actually, yeah. So this episode, I want to say thank you to everyone who came together. Even just the words of encouragement meant a lot. So thank you
Yeah.
so much for getting to have both of us. Otherwise, it'd be Brent by himself.
Different conversation. Yeah. No, it was great.
Hmm.
Also, it got funded so fast that I didn't even have time to like go and share the word on other platforms. I just put it up on LinkedIn basically, and then it was like boom right there. And
Yeah.
so yeah, so thank you to other people who said, oh, I didn't even have time to, donate anything. And it was like totally taken care of, so all good. But thank you for everybody. And so this is not exactly a TESOL 25 recap
Hmm.
episode. Obviously, we had a lot of a lot of good conversations,
Hmm.
really good for me. Ashel, I'm not sure about you, but I was really happy. I got to spend a lot of time kind of catching up with people or meeting people that I've met online but haven't really talked to very much in person. So that kind of the social aspect was great.
Yeah, the last time I was at TESOL, it was in 2017. So since then,
Mm,
that's what, 8 years almost?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's 8 years ago. And so I've met so many new people throughout those 8 years. And I think one of the highlights was meeting Teresa, who came all the way from Spain.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like, and it's just like, oh my goodness, all these friends I've made and people that we've collaborated with. And again, just catching up and touching base with people.
Yeah. Well, and not only that, and we had some of our, regular diesel crew people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, many people who have been on the show. So, Diamudro was on here,
Yeah.
Denise Maduli Williams.
Mm-hmm. Friends
We
of
haven't,
the
yeah,
pod
friends of the pod.
from they
We haven't had her on the show yet, but Christy Reyes has been a long supporter. She was
yes,
there.
Christy.
Um, we met uh we met the
Some of
people
our old
from
Catiso friends.
yeah, old, yeah.
Mulan,
I mean,
yeah.
whole groups of people. Um, uh, the Teach Think Aloud podcast. So
Yeah.
I guess we could spend the whole time just saying, names of different people. And so thank you if you did come out and say hello,
Plus the new people we met.
and all the new people. Really great. But I think what we're gonna switch over to is some of the conversation. So one, Michelle, did you notice how many AI sessions there were this time around?
Holy moly.
Wow.
If there was like AI on pretty much everything.
Yeah, yeah. It was tons and tons. So there was, I mean, probably half of the sessions were
Mm-hmm.
AI stuff. The other half were like advocacy stuff, which is great
Mm-hmm.
too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it was really interesting because, you and me being these kind of like techie nerds, and then like for years and years, it was like there was no sessions on ed tech stuff at
Yeah.
all. And now it's just like everyone.
Which one do I go to? Which one do I go to? Which one is
Yeah.
better? Obviously ours. Just
We did
kidding. Just kidding.
we did have a good time though with ours, and we had a full house,
Yeah.
standing room only. There were people sitting
Yep.
on the floor up front. So thank you for everybody who came to our session there. That was the last session on Friday, but and then
Yeah.
we did a few other ones too. So I did a couple. You did another one with us. Great times, everybody. Thank you.
Hmm.
So our plan is is we had all these AI conversations,
And
during the sessions and in the hallways and everything, and we realized, oh, there's so many people that just haven't even really been exposed to the
right.
to some of the basic conversations. And not to say it's basic, but it's like what's going on now
Yeah.
with AI, and so
Or maybe even they've heard of AI, but this is the first time that they got to go to a conference where it's being applied and they're able
mhm,
to see it in action. So many questions came up, and so we're going to talk about some of them,
yeah.
the ones that came up the most.
All right, let's jump in.
All right.
All right. So the first one, and Ishel, we're gonna have to move fairly quickly through
Mm,
some of these, but the first question is, which is the best AI to use? Lot that actually came up a fair amount, right?
yeah.
What do you recommend?
hmm Well, I know you like ChatGPT, but I tend to go through Gemini and Copilot, and my answer is really test test them all out. It's kind of
Hmm.
like using a dictionary, right? You're not going to stick to just one dictionary with that dictionary's definitions. You're going to go through several versions, and then you're going to check two of them and see which one gives you what you want.
Right, right. That really is the answer. Is you need to go play around with
Hmm
them. So whether that's ChatGPT, whether that's Claude.ai, a lot of people
Copilot,
like Perplexity,
Gemini, yeah,
yeah,
Perplexity
Gemini.
is good too.
There's a lot of conversation coming up these days around Poe. I mean, all of these things. There's just tons of different
Hmm
ones, right? And then some of them also just pull from some of the bigger ones too.
hmm
So you do have to be a little bit careful, but explore and just see what you like. I think that is the best answer by far for this one. And some of them do better at like image generation or the types of image generation you're looking for. Some of them are really good with text and all these things, but it's really hard just to give a total flat answer because they change with every update. And it's like,
hmm
oh, now it feels like this one is better than that one,
hmm
right?
And
And
that's
so,
okay.
yeah.
Dictionaries do the same.
Yeah, yeah, and so feel free to explore. There's no great answer, but I would say try two or three, try one or
hmm
two really for a month, and just see how they respond to how you're working with them, and then switch up to another one and rotate some out, and then you'll kind of settle in, within a few months on like, hey, this is where I kind of tend to like to be.
All right. The other question is, does the free version of whatever you want to insert in here let you do whatever you want to do here? I didn't want to say X,
Yeah,
but
yeah. The free version of let you
why?
right. Yeah. And that is the same type of answer to it. Is a
Mhm.
lot of people ask these technical questions, right? It's like, can you do this and this? Can you do that and that? And the answer, unfortunately, the same answer is you're gonna have to go in and look, right?
Yeah.
And so with ChatGPT, for example, like it does now have the speaking function for in the free version, but you have to be logged in, right? So if you
hmm
wanted to speak and have chats back and forth, you can do that on the free one, but you can't do it on the public facing like no login version, right? And
Right.
so some of these things, it's like I can give you an answer right now, but if you're listening to the answer a month from now, that
It may
changes.
change. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And
And
so
a lot of the times the free version may just get cut and become the paid version. So,
mm-hmm. Yeah, so I definitely understand the question, like, because it came up a lot, right?
hmm
And I understand it in the moment, but the truth is, like, as soon as you answer it, you're gonna have to look on for the next answer because they switch these things so often. So do explore a little bit. Go look at they all have these pages that tell you what's available inside of the free version usually, and so go and take a look, but do explore with it. All right, next question is this one super common. So we've been
hmm
talking about this one since day one. But how do I help my colleagues or institution who resists AI to see the benefits? Whew, that's a big. I'm glad I asked that question so you can answer it.
Well, again, we are only in control of our own actions, and I think sometimes if people have blinders on, no matter how much you sort of tell them the benefits, they may not see it till they're ready to see it. So, my advice is always continue to do what you do, and then show the student work, show the student response to it, collect answers from the students. And then display that because you can't argue with that.
Mm,
And I think oftentimes it's my students who go and tell someone else about it, and then that sort of hooks the colleague or whomever, and then that colleague then comes, hey, I noticed this, I noticed that. But I think the best proof that this works or that is a possibility is the student work, and without that, I think it's harder to win someone over. But I don't think it's necessarily our burden to convince everyone. I think now it's so widely it's in every app that we use that eventually they're going to have to know how to use it. You can't really run away from it. So,
Hmm.
what are your thoughts on that, Brent? Because that's been my approach these days.
Yeah, I think that's a good approach in general. So like that's like word gets around that the
Mm-hmm.
students like what's going on inside of your class, for example. That can be one way. Another one is if you do PD sessions on your campus or
Mm-hmm.
help your other colleagues, you don't necessarily always need to talk about it as an AI thing, but if you're
Mm-hmm.
getting into like, hey, this is some of the work I'm doing, this is what I did with my students, and then the question's like, well, how did you do that? And the answer is, well, I did it with such and such a tool.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's like, oh, okay, I wasn't because so many people have their blocks up immediately as soon as you say AI, but it's like, here's what I'm doing in class, and then it's like, well, how do you do that? And then it's like, well, I'm using ChatGPT or I'm using this different tool or whatever. And that is where they start to go, oh, I didn't know it could do that. Oh, I didn't recognize that those were possibilities. And so I think that one can be one way
Mm-hmm.
to start to see some of the benefits. And then I think also I had another answer to it as well. But I'm blanking at the moment. So, but I do think that's right. Is like one, work with your students, just kind of keep moving forward. Two, don't try to push it on people, but like let them
Yeah.
see it when the time comes up. And then you know, just keep moving in the ways that you think are best, and you'll be
Wait
okay.
for the second pandemic.
Yeah, oh my God, yeah, yeah. No.
Just kidding. All right.
All
So
right.
another important question people asked is it okay for my students to use? And what about their privacy? So
Mm,
valid question.
yeah, super. Uh, I think the first answer to this is you need to check with your institution no matter
Mhm,
what, right? Like that's
mhm,
that's going to be the very first one because a lot of teachers just want to say, "Hey, log in to ChatGPT," right? And it's like, hold on a second. Their
mhm,
privacy is not protected in ChatGPT.
mhm,
There are ways. So, for example, if your students log in and they go click on temporary chat, then that means, at least the company OpenAI claims that they're not training on that data.
mhm,
But there are other organizations. So, for example, if you have an institutional Microsoft account or, like that's
mhm,
actually made through your school, then that will be locked down because it has like FERPA rights that it needs to align with, or,
mhm,
depending on where you are, COPA, HIPAA rights, all those kinds of things. And there are also some tools like Playlab. So if you go to playlab.ai, that is one that is built specifically for schools. And yes, it is taking from the AI like ChatGPT or Claude or whatever else it is, but it's built inside of a system that is FERPA compliant. So you at least know that the information that's going in there is protected for your students.
mhm. And I do think that we always should have the conversation of what students are entering in there, just so students are aware, um, and having those guidelines maybe up on on a on a bulletin board or something like that. I've now done that for my
Mm.
last couple of classes because it just should be something that students leave your institution knowing.
That's a great point. Yeah, if you can make
Mm-hmm.
posters or, something that kind of says like, "Hey, don't put in your personally identifiable information," right? Don't put in your student numbers
Mm-hmm.
or, your address or, any of these kinds of things. Yeah, it's worth taking the time out of lessons and then repeating it regularly, because I think a lot of people have become very comfortable with like, oh, I'm just typing in my address to, get this thing delivered to me, or I'm just, typing in my whatever. I always give my phone number over to get my text messages or whatever. And it's like, no, 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 hold on a second.
Ex-
Still want to do the best you can to protect yourself, and so that's a little bit of digital citizenship that we should
Mhm.
be reinforcing all the time. Okay, next one. We talked a lot about images, Ishel. You and I,
Mhm.
you did a great job in the panel discussion. Really, I think a lot of people were captured by the conversations and the ideas that you were sharing in there. And so we struggled a little bit with a few of the conversations around that, because it kind of felt like, oh, okay, the goal of AI images is to make an image, right? Like just make a picture. And you had a few thoughts on this. So it's like, well, what is the goal of a project with AI images?
Yeah, so when you're using AI images, it's no different to me than when you're searching for an image on Google, in the sense that you're going to use that image as the starting point for a conversation or a project. So, yes, you taught yourself how to prompt the AI to generate an image with particular items that you want in there, but the end goal is not the image itself. So, um, if you're thinking like, oh, this is my students created these images, or I created this image, let's now print them and display them around the room. Well, that's not the end goal. The end goal is, what are you going to use that image for, to jumpstart your conversation, your discussion, your writing project, your presentation, or those things that students are going to enable the learners to have a conversation, to talk about something, to write about something in English. And so it's not about the image, because essentially, why would you need an image if you can just have a drawing, or find something on Google, right? So that it's not, there could be projects about that, but the end goal is enhancing communication that can happen with the students, uh, and that being sparked by an image. So if you're thinking, okay, what do I do with this image now? Do I print them and collect them and make a book? Yeah, you could. but that the end goal is not that. The end goal is, what conversations are the students having? Are they making role plays? Are you having them write about it? What English is that generating? What language is it generating?
That's right. Yeah. So this one here, and actually, Michelle, this is a year ago right now, but
Mm-hmm.
we had episode 102 was beyond time saving using AI images for language learning, or
Mm-hmm.
for language development. And I do recommend going back to that episode,
Mm-hmm.
because we started talking about the ideas of like how many different places, how many different ways you can use AI images. And it's not just about producing the image, right?
Right.
There's lots of different ways and lots of interesting potential for how all of this can work. And so I really want to encourage. I still think this is a whole new field in language
Mm-hmm.
learning that really hasn't been explored quite enough yet. And I think the responses to a lot of your parts of the presentations around those were good indicators that that's very true, because everybody's like, wait, what's going on? Like, how do you do this, right? And oh, I wouldn't even have thought of that before, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so opening up those parts of it can be very there's a lot to explore and a lot to learn that just hasn't been done before. And so I think that connects in with our next question, which is, what should I consider about my audience when using AI images?
Okay, so well, I
A lot.
a lot. So obviously, this is going to depend on that particular class's needs, and also the cultural background of your students. So if you know that your students may be refugees, for example, you might want to make sure that whatever images you are showing them aren't going to trigger something that's unpleasant for them,
Hmm.
because the goal of using images should be to lower their affective filter. If you have students that are in engineering, for example, okay, may want to gear your prompt to have something with, I don't know, I'm gonna just say buildings, or construction, or something like that, or something with uh geometric design. So you as a teacher have to be the one who decides what images you're going to use. So obviously this means generate the images beforehand and see what you need to change. And this came up through a panel,
Hmm.
through our panel at Tesol. And one of the questions was, well, I think one of the examples that one of the panelists showed had, I believe these students were in Palestine, and so they had images that they had chosen. The students themselves had chosen these images.
Right.
So in that case, that was okay because they're the ones who are showing their reality and choosing to express themselves through those images rather than us forcing the images upon them and then triggering something. I don't know if that came out clear. But
Yeah.
definitely you have to think about what might be happening in the world for those students. I read global news, so I am more aware of what might be interesting to my students. And that's how I talk to them the same as you would when you first introduce a course to them and you're trying to get to know them.
Yeah, for sure. So, having that sensitivity to students' needs, this also partly came up because one of the examples that I used, I talked about the
Kicking the
idiomatum.
bucket.
Yeah, one of the activities. It's actually one of the activities in the
Yeah.
upcoming book is the idiomaginative explorations, where the example that I use a lot of times in my presentations is exploring the idiom of kick the bucket and like understanding the literal meaning versus the idiomatic meaning and how to use
Mm-hmm.
images to link between those two, right? But a few of the people had different, things about that and said, well, I can't use that idiom because I don't want my students to be thinking about death in my class or whatever else it is. And it's like, okay, yeah, uh,
Yeah, and that's okay. You don't need
totally
to
fine.
use that idiom. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
even use it in real life. I never even say kick the bucket.
Right. So so these things are like, okay, are we getting into the concept of it, and you can work with your students and see what's appropriate. So but at the same time, you want to have a sense of what's going on in their lives, what their world looks like. Like, are you talking about safe images? And again, you can bring up controversial things in your classes as long as you kind of know and you're thoughtful about how to do
Mhm.
it, right?
Right.
And so anyways, yeah, a lot of different things to consider. Don't just make something on the fly, but do test it out a little
Yeah.
bit to see what you can do and what happens.
Yeah. Here was an interesting question that I didn't have an answer to, but we did get an answer to it. Can I use AI images for my TPT or teachers pay teachers or materials that you sell?
Yeah, that was an interesting question. I
Hmm.
actually, and I was
I
aware of
appreciate the
this.
question.
Yeah, it was great because this teacher's trying to make stuff and share it out with other people. You can, yes. So when you make images, and this might be different between different platforms. So again, you're going to want to go in and check. But ChatGPT, for example, basically says anything that you generate is it's your right to use. Now this is for right now. We want to keep this in mind. And
Mm-hmm.
it's fine that that's what they say, but there are also lots of lawsuits around images, right? Around
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, you're stealing my style when you're creating these things, and therefore anything that you're making out of my style is, should be mine. So possibly in the future, like, hey, these things would not be okay to use,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever else it is. But at the moment, they are considered open, and so if you're doing something that's beyond just like your regular classroom use, if you're saying, hey, I'm going to sell this thing, or this is going to be part of my whatever, part of I'm building a bigger lesson plan that I'll sell on Teachers Pay Teachers, or on my own website or something, it's definitely considered yours when you are the one who asks the chatbot to generate.
Okay.
Next up, how does voice AI work? It's just
Well, I'm actually going to bounce that back to you because I haven't done a lot of work with voice AI, but you have.
Yeah, this came up, and I keep asking this every time I talk to some of the voice companies inside of
Mm-hmm.
the exhibit halls too. Is like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, how do you guys do it? And there are two different ways. So one is voice to text, and then text. Basically, they analyze the text and then they put the text back out to voice. And so that could be fine for regular conversations, but it could be problematic for pronunciation, for homonyms, all sorts of things like that, because it might misunderstand what you're saying inside of those contexts.
Mm,
There are other AIs that are actually all vocal processors, and they work on
mm,
phonemes and all these types of things. And so I think in the future we'll probably see something that's a little bit more akin to the human brain and the way that it processes sounds,
mm,
that does focus more on those kinds of things to better understand, and then be a little bit flexible when we have things like um, you know uh L1 interference,
mm,
pronunciation
mhm,
issues, whatever else
mhm,
it is, and might be able to recognize what those things are going on for, and hopefully to give feedback on those things specifically. So if it said, for example, hey, I recognize that you're, a Portuguese speaker, and you said this in this way, or you use this accent to get this idea across, but actually that becomes a different word or different meaning in English, and so you have to be very careful about, changing your vowel sound or whatever else it is. And so right now it's not perfect with that, because again, a lot of times it goes to text, but both technologies do exist, and most of the tools out there that are trying to explore with these things are pulling in a combination of them. So it's not totally clear that it works perfectly even in those companies, but that's kind of where we're stand right now. So I'll shift to the the next question. What are your thoughts on using AI to find cheating with AI?
We need a whole episode on this one. I want to give you a short elevator answer.
Uh-huh.
But that is that it's terrible pedagogy.
Mm,
And again, if you are putting on this lack mentality of I already expect my students to cheat and I'm going to catch them,
mhm.
then you're approaching this the wrong way. I'm gonna leave it there because I have lots of thoughts and I don't know if I have all the time, but
We
what's
don't have all the
your
time to discuss it.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I my thought on this is the same. So one, remembering that these things still produce false positives and false
Mm-hmm,
negatives. So meaning they misunderstand parts that are, if it's human written, they'll say it's AI written. If it's AI written, they'll say it's human written. You can kind of run these generators to, hey, try it again, try it again, try it again, update it to try it again. So it's like you can endlessly do this. The bigger thing, I think, then this is a harder and longer conversation,
mm-hmm,
is we really do need to shift our what's happening in education, because if we can just get quick answers to simple questions through
mm-hmm,
AI, then are we spending time in our classes and on our education on the things that now matter? Because if simple facts or easy answers are easily producible, then are we thinking
mm-hmm.
about more about, like, hey, how are we actually teaching students to interact with these things and become critical thinkers that challenge the ideas that are being brought to them, rather than just trying to complete a class, right? Which is typically why students will cheat, is they have pressures outside and they just want to
Yeah.
get through it. So
So
uh,
we'll have to have an episode on that. I think that's
yeah. I feel
warranted.
like I've talked about this so much.
So have I, but I feel like you should revisit it
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah, for sure. Okay,
Okay.
last
And
question.
our last question is, can I use AI for assessment?
Mm. So Michelle, you and I were exploring a tool before in the pre-show, which was
Mm-hmm.
pretty cool. What was it called again? It was
Ask Stu.
Ask Stu, ASKSTU. And it kind of does this, right? It like builds little
Mm-hmm.
quizzes inside of everything. My problem is that when the AI builds these things, the answers are not always guaranteed to be right. And so depending on your assessment, right? So there are tools that are definitely focusing on building out these things, right? Brisk is trying to do, all this stuff around feedback. This one asks Stu, which was cool because it's like, I like the idea of like multiple choice and then like having AI grading your multiple choice, except that the problem is that AI is just predictive, and so it will give two
Mm-hmm.
correct answers, for example, as the answer choices, but it'll say only that one of them is right. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, in a different context, the second one is also right. Or,
Mm-hmm.
whatever choices A and C could both be right. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily recognizing that at this point. And so I would say that go back to the episode with Jen Roberts. She talked a lot about the idea of kind of using it as a first sweep for assessment on certain levels, like formative
Mm-hmm.
assessment, but then going in and checking that and saying like, hey, okay, this is setting me up with the basics. So if I'm on a 4 point scale and I ask it to give students like the general idea, then I can go back in and make adjustments later as I need to. So this again is definitely in flux. I would not just say, hey, I'm going to trust any tool right
Mm-hmm.
now to be my AI assessor,
Right.
but possibly as an assistant or as a way to help you through
Mm-hmm.
the process. All right. We kind of tried to jam through those as quickly as possible, Ixchell, but those were some of the regular conversations we were hearing everywhere, hallways, lunch tables, after sessions, all those types of things. If you have other questions that you're kind of worried about or wondering about, send it to us. We might do follow-up episodes like this in the future. We recognize now, after having been at the conference, how many people have so many questions, and it's like, okay, we need to keep talking about this stuff. We need to kind of help people see what's going on. So, and they change. The answers to these totally change, down the line. So I could imagine in 6 more months that we might have just a totally revisited. Now, what are we talking about? Now, what are the questions? So please do feel free to send us your questions.
All right. It is time for our fun finds because there are still some fun things in this world.
Couple.
I have the lean body cookies and cream protein shakes. And they are 40 grams of protein in one sitting, and it doesn't have any sugar.
Mm.
So, as those of you who know, I like to run, and sometimes it's hard to eat a lot of food. I have a small stomach, but I need the protein. So, lean body cookies and cream protein shakes are about $4 each. So, it's pretty good.
I said no sugar, but it's cookies and cream, so it's still pretty sweet.
Um, it's not too sweet because I don't like a lot of sweet. Now I eliminate most of the sugar out of my diet. So
Mm.
you can drink it without like gagging. It's pretty good. See, a lot of protein items are crap.
Yeah,
They
that's the
taste like
goal.
crap. They're not crap. They taste like crap.
Yeah.
What do you have?
Good distinction there.
Yeah.
All right. So mine, a couple weeks ago, I finally sat down and watched the new Nosferatu movie,
Hmm.
from 2024.
Hmm.
It was great. I know it was pretty well received overall. I know there was some controversy in it and everything, but at least the cinematography on it was wonderful. Like the use of colors and like how they use colors to indicate, different situations happening inside of the movie, and it was just this big epic exploration. Vampire, it's essentially a remake of the 1920 or 22, I think, Nosferatu movie. But if you're thinking about that and you're into like going and seeing a gothic horror movie, I was really impressed with it and highly recommend it. So if you're in the mood for that kind of movie, but yeah, very powerful. Nosferatu 2024.
For the show notes and other episodes, check out diesel.org/118 for this episode. We are also on YouTube, Instagram, Threads, and Facebook at Diesel Pod.
You can find me on most of the socials at Brent G. Warner.
And me on most socials at Ixy_Pixie. That's IXY_PIXY.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. We look forward to chatting with you again soon, and take care.
Thank you.
Bye.